There we are. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We're on the Hohner YouTube channel right now. This is Hohner Live, episode 48. That's crazy. Welcome everybody. Let us know from where you're tuning in the chat. And I'm glad to welcome Rob Paparozzi today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Konstantin.
So, for everyone out there who doesn't know about Rob, you are in New Jersey right now, is that right?
Correct.
And Rob is not only a frontman and a singer, but also a fantastic harmonica player on both chromatic and diatonic harmonica, performing since 1967, and not only in blues context, but everywhere. It's jazz, pop, all the languages that Rob speaks, and working with many major artists. And I just tried to remember the first time I stumbled across your music. It was probably through one of the interviews that Howard did at the Spa convention.
Oh yeah.
That's
We did something where maybe it was the company that he does his teaching through. They were doing a series at Spa with all the different harp players, and Howard would interview everybody, right?
Yeah, so true. And you just like started out the whole thing singing, and I'm just like a huge fan of you singing.
He told me, he goes, just sing something. He goes, because you sing too, just sing something. So I did this whole lead belly thing, like, oh, boys, if you like, I just was singing. And and then we started talking and playing and all that. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. That was over 10 years ago at least,
Probably like 2009 or something.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Definitely had more hair back then too,
Me too. That's why I'm there wearing the bandana.
Uh-oh. Yeah, no, eventually it starts to fade. But, it's all good because blues guys, right, or entertainers can wear hats. So it's all good,
That's true. Yeah, as an artist, everything's allowed.
Last October, my brother sent me this shirt. You can't really see the writing on it, but
is it difficult times or different times?
Yeah. These are difficult times.
Oh yeah,
and they That's sure true. Were last year, right? We went through craziness, but it's all good. We're getting back to normal.
Oh yes. So, I suppose you've also been involved with like online teaching, recording, giving lessons, and live stream concerts.
Yes, and I was never really. I mean, I tried to keep up with technology as best I could, but I was, I'm going to be 69 in October, so I'm an old guy. You guys are young guys. You kind of grew up with the technology, so I always avoided. I became a session musician, and I would pick up my little box of harmonicas, and I would enjoy going in my car and driving to the session and let them press the buttons.
Yeah.
And of course, with the pandemic that hit us, everybody. You guys, young people, old people, we had to reinvent ourselves, right? How are we I can't perform anymore. I can't leave the house. And so, yes, I learned how to press the buttons. People would send me tracks. I would send them back. I would do teaching. People said, wow, I was getting phone calls from harp players, and saying, hey, I'm off the road. I used to tour with this guy and that guy, and I want to learn some chromatic. I have time, so I taught and I did some Zoom classes, and it's all good.
That's nice. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you're not only playing harmonica, you're a great guitarist. You play piano.
Yeah, I mean, and I started out playing all those instruments around the same time, like around in 67. I was like, maybe 15 or 15 years old, 14 or 15. And I was learning off the radio. I was listening to the Beatles and the Stones and Bob Dylan, and they were on AM radio, which was like pop radio. I didn't even know about Chicago blues at that point. In New Jersey, the blues was not so popular like it was in Chicago. So my brothers had some guitars. I would take their guitars and when they went out and tried to copy the chords they were playing, all by ear. And I went out and bought a piano, and I kind of figured it out by ear. And it just kind of all came together. But I found years later, as I was really trying to concentrate on harmonica, how important or how helpful the piano became, you know, and the guitar became as a tool, you know, and then the singing too. I mean, because singing and harmonica could have a lot of similarities too, with vocal quality and vibrato and intonation and things like that. So it kind of all came together, and I said, wow, okay, it doesn't have to just be the one thing. All these other things about music can make my harmonica playing better, and I feel it did, you know.
Oh yeah, that's so important. That's also just like what everybody is like shaped of, like these different influences coming from everywhere, and not only from different music styles or different art
in
forms,
harmonica we didn't have. I
instruments.
mean, at least when I was coming up, we had no YouTube and we had no video stuff to look at, and so it really was important to, I mean, there was like one book maybe, you know, and in that book it was very limited. It wasn't like Winslow's Harmonica for Dummies, you know, where he covers everything, you know. It was very limited, and it was might have just been for blues. And, you know, there might have been a Larry Adler book, but all he was doing is just had somebody transcribe his amazing solos, and that wasn't helpful for me. I wasn't a great reader. I was teaching myself how to read music. So there wasn't a lot of stuff out there. So we would take our record players and we would try and slow it down from 33 to 16. Now we can, on YouTube, you can slow it down without changing the pitch. But I would put it on 16, try and slow it down and practice the licks over and over again. So it took a lot longer. Now it's great. I mean, we have all these great tools, which is, I think, making the harmonica players become better, faster. It took me a long time to get from A to B, you know?
Yeah, there wasn't the information out there. So, like right now, yeah, you said it already, it's like very different. Are you making use of like these videos or the material that's out there right now yourself too?
Yeah, I mean, I'll check out what's out there, and I'm still learning, of course. So I learn from them too. But I also, I can share some of that with some of my students and say, hey, have you seen that one? This is really good for holes 2 and 3. You know, if you work on this and you work on so many great teachers out there, and there's a lot of craziness out there because now you have millions of people saying, I'm going to teach you how to play the harmonica, and some of them really don't, know what they're doing. Some of them are really good, so you got to sift through all that. So you take notes, right? And you make notes, who's good, who's not good, and we learn from that. And it's great having all the stuff and the stuff that you're doing and have it available online. It's fantastic. I'm so happy that, and I'm also happy now that younger players like yourself are out there, and the harmonica companies, we only had the one company basically when I was coming up. You had Hohner, and Hohner has been great, but they went through periods too where things got crazy for them, and but now a harmonica player has choices. You have custom harps, you have different brands, you have tweaked harps if you're into overblowing. We had none of that. So I think that's probably one of the main reasons I ended up going to the chromatic, is because if I had a tweaked harp, I might have put more time in on the overblows and stuff, and playing chromatically on a diatonic. I mean, I do it now, but I'm too set in my ways. I'll use the overblows, but I said, boy, I wish I had this 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because like right now, recording a lot of stuff like remotely. Nobody knows, but I'm recording more and more chromatic harmonica.
Oh, so you play chromatic as well?
No, I'm not really
on
good
chromatic
at it,
on your diatonic, yes.
No, I just play the chromatic. Like I have like a CX12
Oh, so you're putting a lot of time. Wow. Okay, I didn't know. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's
And
just,
and I and I'm
sometimes it
always
feels better, like in a pop context or whatever.
That's fantastic. It's funny. A couple of years back, I was going to a harmonica. It was like an event where harmonica players were donating their time. It was for like a food bank, and it was here in Jersey, but they brought in some good, really good harmonica players, and they brought Howard Levy in, and I think I picked him up at the airport, and we're driving back to the venue, and he said to me, he goes, Rob, what are you going to play today? And I said, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and I said, what are you going to do? And he's going, well, I'm going to play 12 standards on my A harmonica. And I'm only going to bring this A harmonica inside. He goes, I'll put a spare A in my back pocket in case I get dust in it or something. But I'm only going to bring in an A, and I'm going to play Wave and Giant Steps and Black Orpheus. And he had 12 standards in 12 different keys. And he was playing it for me in the car, and I said, sounds so good.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd never know he's playing it on one harp, And then he reached over, and I had a chromatic, in between, the seats, and he said, could I play that? And I said, yeah. And I'm driving, and he's playing a concerto. He goes, this is a concerto I wrote on harmonica. He goes, don't tell anybody you heard me play this. I mean, now I'm telling the whole world, but
yeah, I know about this.
I said, why? He goes, because I'm Howard Levy, and I put a lot of time in what I do, and I want to be known for what I do. I don't want somebody at a session telling me, hey, play chromatic or play that one. I do what I do. And I said, it makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
But he can really play chromatic.
Oh, yeah.
So, there you go.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I had the pleasure to get lessons from Howard during the last 1.5 years, I guess, like during like my master's studies here in Hamburg, like remotely, obviously.
Yeah.
But also had the chance to fly him over one time in October 2019. We played a concert together here in Hamburg.
Oh, wow. How did that go?
I mean, that's crazy. Like, just standing on stage with him and just knowing, like, either way, like, playing a solo before him or after him.
Yeah. But the beautiful thing about Howard is that he makes you feel comfortable. I mean, he's an amazing musician, and he knows everything about music, but he makes you feel comfortable as another musician, and then the learning begins. You can really learn. I learned so much just from listening to him. Sometimes just listening to him play piano, I learn, from him about music, and I try and bring that back to my chromatic or my diatonic playing, and it's very, very helpful. Howard has a good understanding, and he's a good teacher, right? I mean, you felt like, you could take some lessons and ask him anything you wanted to ask him, and he comes through with it, and that's beautiful.
Oh yeah, like everybody doesn't matter like which instrument they played. Like everybody wanted to get lessons with him at the music school. Like if it was. Didn't matter, like a harpist or a violin player, and they were just like all amazed afterwards. So yeah, definitely an influence. But how did you step into jazz then? So you basically started out playing a lot of blues, right?
And it's funny. I'll tell you how I did. And you had mentioned, jamming with Howard, and maybe it was over 20 years ago. We had this harmonica summit out in Minneapolis that this guy Chris McCulloch, who passed away, put it together with a couple of people out there, and he said, I'm going to have Howard Levy and Toots Thielman. Now, Toots Thielman was the guy that influenced me as well, maybe I could play jazz on the chromatic kind of a thing, and I said, you're going to have Howard Levy and Toots Thielman play together? That's insane. They're totally different players. So I was going out to Minneapolis with my friend Bernard Purdy, who's a famous drummer, and he was going out to play at a jazz fest, and he was going to come to the Harmonica Summit and check it out, with us. So we're at LaGuardia Airport in New York City, and we're waiting for our flight. to the Harmonica Summit in Minneapolis, and Bernard sees Toots, and Toots is there, and he's sleeping with his manager. He's kind of nodding out, and he went over, started talking to Toots, and Toots started talking, and he said, "Oh, you're Paparozzi, you're going to the Harmonica Summit." He goes, and he knew me from, because I was studying with him by phone, but we never really hung out live that much. So he knew who I was, and he was teaching me by telephone. And he goes, they sent me some tapes. He had the Belgian accent. He goes, they sent me some tapes of Howard. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, he pays no attention to the melody, and he goes, and the vibrato. And I said, well, he's a very different kind of player. So I think you guys are going to hit it off. He goes, and I said, you were playing overblows before Howard. He goes, but I didn't know they were over. I didn't know what they were called,
Yeah.
And sure enough, a couple of days later, they meet at the Harmonica Summit, and they fell in love with each other. They just hit it. I mean, they played together. They sounded amazing, and two great musicians. They became friends,
Oh yeah.
It was great. It was great. So yeah, Toots Thielman kind of got me into, because I was playing a lot of blues and diatonic, and then listening to country players like Charlie McCoy and then Norton Buffalo. And I said, okay, now chromatic seems so different. Can I really bend on it? Where do I start? And then, of course, on the chromatic, you have that issue where you have those N harmonics where you have the two Fs, like you have the blow and the draw. Like, which one do I use? And then you have the three Cs. The draw C, the B sharp, and then you got two blow Cs. So I said, I'm willing to learn this, but how do I know which one to use on this? Playing a scale, which one do I use? And guys like Toots were able to answer those questions for me. And then there was another guy, Mike Turk, who is still around. He's up in Boston area, and he also went from diatonic to chromatic, and he moved to New York City, so I went and took a lesson with him. I started calling Toots on the phone because he was living in New York City at the time, and he would answer questions for him. We became phone buddies. And he said, you ask me anything you want, and I'll help you if I can, So that's how I started getting into the chromatic, and I would go to hear his shows, and he was, of course, playing jazz tunes, Days of Wine and Roses and whatever, that kind of stuff. And I felt that I learned a lot just from listening to his records and going to hear him play and him telling me what to practice, on the harmonica. And it was useful.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was glad to already get a little taste of you playing some jazz, some Black Orpheus earlier.
Yeah. And, like I was mentioning the scale thing, right? So when you first pick up a chromatic, right, you breathe in and out a lot, and you say, okay, well, that's great for maybe, if you're playing staccato. Now, I was doing that puckered. Now, if I did a tongue block, you start to bite the articulation. Now you get the tongue blocked effect. But how do you get it to be smooth? Like a jazz scale, you might want it to not be as You might want to play a little jazzier. So I found out that I could use the N harmonics. And I used the button, and I started, wait a minute, that sounds a little bit like what Stevie is doing.
Yeah.
And then I went and listened to some of his records, and I said, yeah, he's using that button the way he wants to use it and making things sound more legato or smooth on certain things. I noticed, this is all stuff I learned as I was practicing, and I noticed Toots Thielman was playing a lot of the standards in flat keys because it sets up nice, E flat or A flat or F minor. And
these are the keys I like to play on the chromatic.
Stevie was playing in sharp keys, I saying like, wow, he's playing an F sharp. That's a hard key to, why would he do that? Because he wasn't playing the melody. He was playing around the melody and jazzing it up a little bit, So I found, okay, I need to learn the sharp keys. I need to learn the flat keys and then make it my own, steal a little bit from Stevie, steal a lot from Toots, and make it my own.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I kind of got started. And then I found Robert Bonfiglio, the amazing classical player that studied with Chamber Wang, and he was living in New York City. And he said, hey, you really should learn how to read properly and play that thing, a certain way. And then you can do whatever you want to do, but learn it, And I did. I went to him. I studied with Chamber Wang. He gave a couple of classes in New York City at the Turtle Bay Music School back in the 70s. I went to see Larry Adler live. He was playing at the Rainbow Grill, and he finally came back to the United States after like 40 years, and I went and saw him, and he had a meet and greet, and I shook his hand, and then you could actually take Chamber Wang's workshop for a couple of weeks, and then I found out Hohner had this thing called the Harmonica Brouhaha, and it was an event, and they had it at the South Street Seaport in New York City, down by the fish market, down by the Hudson River, and it was all harmonica players that they maybe were endorsees at the time. Now we're talking like 1974 or something, 72 or whatever. And they had players like, Toots Thielemans was there, but Chamber Wang, he had a chamber trio or quartet, and they were playing classical pieces over in one corner. And Alan Blackie Shackner, a great session player, he was just walking around, hey, yeah, I'll teach you how to play. And he's playing a couple of licks, and you ask him how to play, and he'd show you. And then they had some blues harp players over on that side. And that's where I got Robert Bonfiglio's phone number. And he said, hey, come on, I'll teach you every week. And, so I was getting serious about it. And I took him up on it, and it helped me a lot. I'm not a great reader, but I can read enough now that I can go and do a session or a show or Broadway show or play with an orchestra, because I learned how to read. Now I have to learn how to follow a conductor, and that's a whole different thing. Harmonica players aren't really used to following conductors, but I figured if I'm going to play with more than 10 guys, I need to follow a conductor. So I learned as best I could, and then once I did, I started getting some calls, because I was a half hour from New York City over here in New Jersey. Yeah. People started calling. I'd get phone calls from, like, whoa, I got a phone call from Whitney Houston and Cyndi Lauper, and they're going to do a Broadway show, and Boy George and Culture Club need a harmonica player, and because you're by New York City, so that's where the scene is, But we had a lot of good players, and they were all getting calls too. William Gallison, great player, and Robert Bonfiglio, amazing player. Hendrik Merkens, who came over from Germany.
From Hamburg, actually.
And we had a whole bunch of other players too.
Yeah, Henrik is from Hamburg, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So did you guys know each other?
I think we got in touch like through Facebook one time, but like
you should have him on your show.
That's so true.
That would be great. That would be great. So that's very cool. And in New York, so we had a lot. And Gregoire Marais came over from,
of course,
I think Switzerland at the time, and he was living in Brooklyn. So around the turn of maybe around the end of the 90s, I met this guy, Wade Schumann, who ended up starting a band called Hazmat Mode. He wanted me to join. He wanted more than one harmonica player. And I said, well, I'm really busy doing other things that I do. So I passed, but we became good friends. And we started this group in New York called the Top Brass Reedsters Club. And he said, well, who are we going to invite to come to? I said, well, we got all these great harmonica players, and nobody talks to each other. And the internet was just really starting out. And I said, let's get everybody together over at the Turtle Bay Music School where I'm teaching, and have like a meeting and see what everybody's up to. And we did. And we we sent invitations to Paul Osher and John Popper and, Chamber Wong and Charlie Layton. And we had all these players, and they all came, and it was almost like a resource. This was before the YouTube thing came out, so we could pick each other's brain and say, hey, what are you doing for work, or how are you handling your sessions, or what are you doing with your harmonica, and what kind of gigs are you doing?
Yeah.
And we started this club, and it kind of became good. We had a few meetings, and then eventually it just kind of split up, and everybody went in their own direction, but it was a cool thing.
Wow, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, we had another thing at Charlie Layton was a chromatic harmonica player, had an amazing sound, but he chose not to become a professional harmonica player. He used to play with some of the harmonic cat groups, back in the 40s and things like that. But he found he wanted to be a sound engineer, and he started his own studio in Manhattan. Started teaching guys like Phil Ramone, who went on to become famous producers, but Charlie Layton really knew his thing. So only a few people knew he was this amazing harmonica player because he didn't advertise it. He didn't tell many people. So years later, after he got out of the studio thing and retired, he started getting more into his chromatic harmonica. And in his apartment, every Tuesday afternoon, he invited only chromatic players. So he thought I was a diatonic player, and he didn't know I played chromatic. And he said, no, I don't want him up here because I just want chromatic player, And I fought hard, and I said, look, harmonica is harmonica. We have to stop drawing the line between diatonic and chromatic. It's a harmonica, and you play music on both. And yes, I can play some chromatic. I can play some diatonic. And he lightened up, and I went up there, and man, I learned a lot of stuff. Every Tuesday, he would put on a track, and he would start it. Maybe it was Sophisticated Lady, by Duke Ellington or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That would start, and then he had all the other tracks lined up. He would play first, and then you have to play two choruses, and then William would play, and then this guy would play, So it was pretty cool. It kind of became like this famous Tuesday afternoon thing. And we learned a lot of stuff up there from Charles Layton.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something that's needed. And like, hopefully coming back with all the harmonica festivals happening soon again.
Yeah, we missed those, right? I mean, gosh. They had them in Asia, every big ones, right? The Asian festival.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, did you guys have one the Hohner has the big one in Germany every year.
It should happen this year, but yeah, I think it's like...
But was it more online kind of a thing?
No, I think it's like planned for October.
It's going to happen in
November.
October, right?
Yeah, but it's like...
Okay.
It's hard to like prepare it right now.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what's going to happen.
We'll get back to normal. I've never been to the German one, and I want to come. I want to come and see how they do it in Germany. I mean, the Hohner one is like pretty official too. I've been to spas,
and
that's
where I've never been to.
That's about it. I went to the one in the UK. They do a great one too.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. They do some good stuff over there too. So yeah, hopefully now maybe in another year or so we'll start getting back to the live get together at the hotel and everybody can play. And I mean, this has been great. This virtual stuff has been great because it got us through a tough time. But it's time to get back out and talk to people live too, and play live.
Yeah.
But it takes time. We're getting there.
True. So there are some questions coming in the chat. This is a serious question by Amir Torabi. If time goes back, which mistakes you didn't do again?
If time goes back?
Yeah, if there...
Say that again. Read it again because you were cutting out a little bit.
Let me rephrase it. If time goes back, if you can go back in time, which mistakes are the mistakes that you wouldn't do again?
Well, that's a really good question. I probably would make all the same mistakes again because I know me. But if I could really go back, and if I had my choice to go back and correct some of the stuff that I thought I was doing wrong, I probably would have I would have made myself go to music school. And I think I ended up with a degree in sociology. So I have a college degree, but it's not in music because I didn't have the confidence because I was playing in rock and roll and blues bands. And I really didn't consider myself a musician, and I didn't have the confidence. So when I was in college, I can't major in music because I don't have that kind of. So I think what I would do is I would have forced myself to take lessons when I was younger and get that under my belt a lot earlier. In hindsight, that's what I would have done, but I did it my way.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because like the only reason I went to music school was I was just afraid of like not having enough time making music if I would do something else.
Yeah, well, that was smart because
that was my reason.
Once when you're young, right? Once you start doing something else, you'll never go back, and then it's harder as you get older to go back to school. So you did it the right way.
Well, I hope so. So
do you have a degree? Do you have a degree in music, or what?
Yeah,
did you
I just got like a master degree.
Oh, well, I wish I would have done that. I think that's great.
I'm even thinking about getting a PhD. That's actually possible here.
Now, how did you find? I want to ask you a question. You went right on. You went right into music school, and you learned all the music stuff you had. Was it difficult as a harmonica? You were doing this as a harmonica player, right? You mean your main instrument?
Time, no, yeah.
It was. So that must have been difficult because the teachers and the performers, they're not looking at you like they look at a piano player and a guitar player or a saxophone player.
Yeah.
You're a harmonica player, you know. Was that weird?
Yeah, I mean, it was weird from the beginning on because like just like the application process in the beginning was already weird, of course. So I had to ask like the music schools if they could even like imagine having a harmonica player at their school. So some of them said, "Oh no, we don't know what to do with you, so don't apply." I did some online applications, actually also for like some schools in the US. Got accepted, but yeah, it's like pretty expensive. Even if you get it,
and you can get a good music education in Germany. I mean, so
and it's for free in Germany.
You had to make decisions how you were going to do it, but that is a great way to go. And I'm hoping that now. I mean, we have a guy over here, George Miklas, who's he plays bass and chord, and he went and got his master's and his doctorate and all kinds of stuff. And he's trying to get courses in all the schools and in colleges and in high schools for harmonica. And I'm hoping, I mean, what the heck, we've made a lot of progress in the past 50 years. And if we can do that on the educational system, where a harmonica player doesn't have to feel all kinds of weird because he's going to major in music, there's actually a harmonica major, man, that's going to take this instrument in leaps and bounds, you know, and that's great.
That's definitely
what I want to see.
So true.
That would be great. Yeah. So now
I'm
we
glad
have teachers,
that the schools I went to were like
that's
very
why
open-minded.
during the pandemic I love taking on students and helping as many people as I could.
Yeah. Yeah, teaching is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But for you, like learning jazz, did that all happen like before you formed the original Blues Brothers band? Or afterwards?
No, it was a process. And I'm still learning. There's a lot I have to learn about jazz and blues and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all at the same time. I learned how to read. But I had a family to support, so I've had day jobs and I had music jobs and I had everything because I had kids and a mortgage and a house and and my wife, and we had to. So I found that I had to work. So I would find these, like a Broadway show would call me up and say, we need harmonica. I would take it because I could use the steady money and maybe get health benefits from that. And I would take commercials playing my harmonica on on a commercial, a soda commercial, or whatever,
Yeah.
But I was learning, and when I went back home, I still was practicing my jazz, teaching myself, okay, I got to learn these arpeggios, and I got to learn how to solo over jazz too. But I would do that at home, and then eventually, if I felt confident, I might go out to a jazz jam.
Yeah.
Or go sit in with a band
That's
with like
scary.
really good players
Going to a
and get
jazz
my
jam
butt
for the
kicked.
first.
But I learned, and I came home and said, yeah, I got through that one tune,
That's
and
it, yeah.
so it was a process all through the years. And then when I went to play with the Blues Brothers, I got a phone call around maybe the year 2000. So that's 21 years ago, and it was Steve Cropper from the Blues Brothers. I was like, Steve Cropper's calling me, And he goes, we need a singer. And I said, well, yeah. He goes, you know these songs? And I said, well, yeah, I kind of know those. She Caught the Katy, yeah, I know, like Messing with the Kid. Yeah, I know those. Soul Man, I know. And I said, I play harmonica. He goes, well, we don't really need harmonica. We need a singer, so they hired me as a singer.
Yeah.
And I just went out. Our first gig was in Poland. And, I learned all the songs, and I went to take my harmonica out at the end of She Caught the Katy because I heard the Blues Brothers. I knew Taj Mahal wrote the song with this famous blues mandolin player, Yank Rochelle. And, but I knew that Dan Aykroyd even played harmonica in the movie and, on the Blues Brothers. So I figured they're going to want harmonicas. I took my harmonica out, and She Caught the Katy, and Blue Lou, the saxophone, he goes, no. He goes, that's a trombone solo now. And I said, he goes, you could play at the end of the song over the one chord. And I said, I don't play over the one chord. I don't need to play. And I just put it back in my pocket. And I said, I'll sing your song for you, And then maybe a couple of gigs later, they heard me in the dressing room, and I was playing my harmonica. And Eddie Floyd, the singer, he goes, listen to what Rob's playing on that harmonica. We got to work that into the show. And they said, okay, So it's funny how things happen. They type you as a singer or a harmonica player and a blues brother, and it's like, It's crazy, But hey, it paid the bills.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it's a big challenge as a harmonica player, so that's why you have to do a lot of different things.
It's a challenge. And then a few years after that, I got a phone call from a band, a famous rock band we had here in America called Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Yeah, exactly.
And the singer knew me, David Clayton Thomas, Spinning Wheel, What Goes Up, Must Go. It was like they were big in my era, right? And I knew the songs, but they said, I played harmonica on a lot of his solo records, so they knew who I was. But they said, could you come and front this band because David Clayton Thomas is now going back to Canada, and we need a singer, and we're going to bring Steve Katz back to play guitar. And I said, wow. And that was a hard songbook to learn as a singer, but I learned it. And there was a couple of harmonica parts, but then I had to let Steve Katz, the guitar player, play those because he was the one who played them on the records. So I didn't get to play any harmonica.
That's so weird.
It's all good.
Yeah. But I definitely feel you with the jazz session. Like when I went to my first jazz jam session, I practiced all the things you are heavily. And I went through the tune in my mind before going to bed and through the chords, and I knew it by heart. But still at the session, I got completely lost. And there was that's just the best lesson. Then you get home, and then you know that you still have a lot of work to do.
And you know what? You always have a lot of work to do. But the more you do it, and if you surround yourself with musicians that are better than you, and there's always going to be a lot of musicians that are better than you, eventually you hang around with those players and you're going to say, well, I don't want to make a fool out of myself, so I'm going to learn this tune and I'm going to play my part. And it's sort of a way to learn how to play, just throwing yourself in the fire and going with it. When you go home, you can practice your scales and your arpeggios and all that. But when you're out on that gig, you got to put all that aside and just play something that feels good. And you might hit a couple of wrong notes, but if you got a lot of soul in there, they're not going to worry about those notes,
That's true. And also, I mean, I'm probably everybody, we're not playing everything we play at home on stage.
Yeah.
or everything we practice at home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Everything is, I mean, and you never know what you're going to play. Sometimes people send you a track to play on, and it might be a totally different kind of thing that you're not used to doing. So it depends on what you want to do as a harmonica player. I have harmonica students that want to just play country. They want to just play jazz. They want to just play blues. And they have that luxury because they don't have to make a living doing it. They just want to do it to make themselves happy and feel good.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to be a session player and you want to play harmonica, that means you got to learn all the styles. And that's where I felt, okay, I'm going to have to learn a little bit of each. And I've gone into sessions where they wanted me to play like, can you play like this? And they put on a CD and you're listening. And one time it was Blues Traveler. It was John. This was back in like the early 90s when they just broke. And it was John. I didn't know. I said, let me see that CD. I said, John Popper, that's the kid from the harmonica contest that I judged, you know. And there it was. And now I had to play like him. I said, well, I'll give you maybe 30 seconds, but I don't play that way, you know.
Yeah.
So it's always a challenge to be a session player where you got to go in and kind of sound. Some days they wanted you to sound like Stevie Wonder or Toots Thielman or Paul Butterfield or Howard Levy or whatever.
Or Bob Dylan.
Give them a little bit of everything.
Also, like, it happens pretty often, like, going to the studio and then you play something very, very clear with single notes and then they say, yeah, but can you play with a little more, I don't know, dirt or whatever, right?
I was playing on I got a call once to play on it was like a Diet Coke, you know, it was a big commercial. It was going to pay a lot of money. And it was with this blues guy, Johnny Copeland, who was living in New York at the time. And he was a real blues man. And I was getting to play with Johnny Copeland. And they had some really good players. And they needed harmonica on this session. So I went in. And I said, okay, I'm going to play my best. I got my harps, my mic, whatever. And I started to play. And then the producer, now all the musicians are in the studio. And he's saying, yeah, Rob. He goes, yeah, I see what you're doing on that harmonica. He goes, now, let me ask you a question. I said, yeah. He goes, if I were to come in there and take that harmonica, you know, out of your hands and throw it on the ground and step on it, how would that sound? If you went to play it, how would that And I said, what are you saying? He goes, well, you know, I want you to just play, you know. I said, am I playing too flashy or am I playing too... He goes, well, no, just play it like, you know, like if somebody... I said, well, you know what? If you want, I can step on this and you can come in and play it. I got mad. You know? And you could come in and play it and I'll just leave, you know. He goes, no, it's okay, you know. Just don't make it, you know, dumb it down a little bit. So we get all these requests. Maybe he wanted it to sound more like Bob Dylan or Neil Young. I don't know, you know, but he didn't want like flashy harmonica. He didn't want my best playing. He just wanted it to be like a harmonica that he heard in his head. Yeah. So you got to be a mind reader.
Nice. Well, yeah. What I really enjoyed was your solo CD, Etruscan Soul, where you played Peg, and I even did a video on it like a few years ago. That's right. You did a video, and I saw that video, and it was excellent because you showed everybody how to. Now you could play this if you want to play it on diatonic. You got a couple of overblows, and it sets up really nice, right? And you did a video. Yeah, it's such a great song. It's a great song, and it's a good song for harmonica. I mean, when I did that record, I said I was actually going to do Peg of, well, I did, you know, Peg of My Heart. And what I did is I used, you know, like the major, the country tuned harp, you know, and get that whole major seventh, you know, that that major seventh chord in there. But I said, wow, if I do Peg, wouldn't it be cool if I went from Peg of My Heart to Steely Dan's Peg, and I kind of put them both together. But what I did is when I did Peg, I said, I'm going to play that on chromatic, and I used a chromatic harmonica for the lead, and I used a diatonic for the solo,
and then I used the 2016. You remember the old 2016 that Hohner made?
Oh no.
They made a chromatic, the 2016. I used that on the octaves to make it like sound like a horn line, and then I used the bass harmonica for like a pad, and I used about 5 or 6 harmonicas on that peg. So, and that was really cool that you did a video showing people how to play it on the diatonic, man. That was great.
Yeah, that's a fun song. Still teach it to some students sometimes.
Yeah, it's a good tune. I also did the Beatles' "Ticket to Ride" on that record, where I kind of just took the Beatles song and I made it into a shuffle and played the melody, which sets up really nice in cross harp, And it's funny because Peter Madcat Ruth said, "Hey, Rob," he goes, "that arrangement you did of Ticket to Ride," he goes, "I was just down in Brazil and a lot of the blues bands heard it and now they're all doing Ticket to Ride as a shuffle, So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, just like 2 or 3 days ago, I recorded some harmony parts with the chromatic, which I never did. But it's just like, I thought it was the best thing that served the song. So
yeah. Now, what do you like to play? Do you like 16 or 12 hole, or it doesn't matter?
I don't have a 16 hole. Hohner, send me one.
They sent you one. They sent you a big 16 hole?
No. I was asking them to send me one right now.
Yeah, I mean, and then, they make the different
CX12
keys in the chromatics too. And I, as a session player, I found that I learned how to play in all 12 keys, and you really should learn how to play in all 12 keys on the chromatic. And then you might want to know that there's other keys out there, because when I was taking my phone lessons from Toots Thielemans, he said, you should pick up a G chromatic and pretend that you're stuck on a desert island and you only have that G chromatic, but you want to play Sophisticated Lady in the original key. Now, where does that live on that harmonica? And I saw what he meant. It was, has a different spot. So I would start to fool around with, I bought a G and I bought a B and a B flat.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't have them all, but I occasionally, if somebody wants me to play something and it feels better on a B harmonica, then I might learn it. And they don't care what harmonica I'm using. They just want it to sound right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it sounds right. I remember that I practiced all the scales on the chromatic. There was I was on vacation with my family. Fantastic weather, Italy, swimming pool, everybody was outside. And I was on the hotel room with my headphones and just practicing the scales on the chromatic.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a different beast. But and what I do with a lot of my classes, I teach, it's called transitioning between chromatic and diatonic, and I try and show, because I started out on diatonic, so there's a lot of similarities in the breathing, in the embouchure. We used pucker, we used tongue block, and there's a lot of that things that you can bring back and forth to each instrument. So even though they're very different, there's a lot of similarities that make them the same, and that's where I just look at it as a harmonica sometimes, and I'll just pick up the right harp for the right tool, the right song, and I don't think, it's chromatic, it's blues harp, it's just a harmonica,
Yeah. Oh, Randy Power is tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Rob, long time no see.
Yeah, great to see you here. It's so great. I mean, I wanted to come on and do this with you because I figured it'd be a good way to communicate with harmonica players all around the world. And you've got quite an audience here, I mean, you have people from all over that have been, you've been doing this for what, about a year now?
About a year now, I guess so. Yeah, I started these out just with me only teaching, but then, and only occasional guests, if they were in the area, playing a concert in Hamburg. So I did a stream with Steve Baker on side and Howard too, but then the online thing started, and then it turned into that interview format.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, that's great.
Which is a nice way to
now
stay in touch.
it's really nice that you can actually set up lessons, right? If you want to study with Howard, it's a possibility, and that's just invaluable. And I hope that we get more chromatic players too that are going to start. I mean, I know I offer what I do to teach, but it would be great to have a whole slew of teachers out there that you can decide who you want to study with. And there's nothing like studying too. I mean, even if you're doing it online, one-on-one, you can ask the questions.
Yeah.
If you're in a Zoom class, that's great, but that's a class, you know. But one-on-one, your teacher gives you an assignment. You go away for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you work on it, and you make a lot of progress because it forces you to play along with a track. And now you're going to play it for me when you come back, and we comment and we can critique it. And a lot of good learning goes on like that. And I had a lot of students. In fact, right now I'm going through a thing where I'm getting busy because we're getting back to work, and I have things going on, and I had to cut back on my students. Oh no, we were just getting into some good stuff, you know. So I'm going to get back to it. I'm not going to leave anybody hanging, but I had to take a little bit of a break because I was coming down in this basement here every day, turn on the computer, and I have a book that I used, and man, I filled up this book with students, and I kept a page on each student. I wrote the date, what their name was, what we were working on, the assignment that I gave them, and then after we did the lesson, what I do is I give you the lesson, we talk, I see where you're at, and then after the lesson, I might spend another 45 minutes to an hour putting a new lesson together for you. I put it in a Dropbox, and I send you the link, and then you have all the MP3s, the charts, the PDFs, and that becomes your next lesson. So it was very time consuming for me. I liked it, but it's a lot of work, you know?
Yeah.
Teaching.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm also doing the Dropbox thing, and sometimes I have to cut down on it. Like, it's a lot of work. It's just so true. Oh yeah, and I also wanted to talk about our mutual friend Jay Gaunt, because a few years back I visited him in New York.
I
don't know, but that's some time ago already. And
wow.
That was maybe the first video that I saw of you. There's like a video of you jamming with him, playing Song for My Father online.
Right.
And
yeah, he
how I
was living in Jersey
Jay
at the time, and I would he would come out and play with my band, and I was impressed with his playing, and he would come up and sit in with us. Are you guys around the same age, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, wow. What's he up to now? I think he moved, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't been in touch with him. I used to be in touch with him,
about,
but
some
I think he moved out to the Midwest. I know he was going to school in New York, right? Maybe NYU or something like that. But yeah, so yeah, Jay Gaunt was another guy that I didn't teach him, but we would get together. I'd give him advice, you know, what he should work on, and he would play for me, and then he'd come and sit in with the band. And he took it along. He took it, man. He went with it, and he became a great player. Yeah, he was a good player.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we had a great time in New York, like going out to all the concerts and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do in New York.
We couldn't get into the
go to
blues
jams
club, though,
too,
because
and
I
you
was
can
young.
go to hear great music that you can't hear anywhere else. And you know, hopefully we'll be getting back to that now. I did 2 gigs last week at the Bitter End down in Greenwich Village, and it kind of felt weird to get back out and play, but it was really, really nice playing for a live audience again. So
yeah,
looking forward.
Yeah, I remember we wanted to see Dennis Grunling at Terror Blues, but I was too young to get in. So we could just
Dennis,
meet him
when he was
outside.
younger, he used to come and hear my band. I mean, that's how old I am. But I'd say, like, see this guy standing over there. He's looking at me. And he's watching me. He was getting his stuff together, and then he'd call me up and ask me questions, and he became an amazing player in his own right. I mean, now he's doing all kinds of stuff. So Dennis was a Jersey guy. Now he lives out in California. and playing all over the place.
Yeah.
That's great. There was a lot of guys that Howard Levy did a harmonica summit himself down in North Carolina at Paul Messenger's house back in the late 90s, maybe 98. And he was just becoming like a teacher a little. He was doing the Bella Fleck thing, so he was getting a real big name. And but we only could invite like maybe 15 to 20 because it was at a house.
Yeah.
So Dennis Grunling signed up for it, and Joe Falisco, and Paul Messenger, and myself, Chris Mahalik, and Roscoe Selly, and Carlos De Junco, and Sandy Weltman, right?
Yeah.
And so all these great players came, and we spent a week with Howard, and he taught every day. He had a piano player, and he just stood up there and he taught us, and man, we learned a lot of good stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this the event. There are like some videos of that on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah. There's stuff out there now, and a lot of it was documented. So it's really cool that we had this opportunity to do that. And
yeah. So what are you up to next? I mean, you're getting back into gigs. I read that you also played at the Harp Fest with Jerry Fierro.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I'm just getting back in now, and people are calling all of a sudden. And I've been doing some live gigs in New York City with Jimmy Vivino and Jeff Young. And then Jerry Fierro has been having a Harp Fest down in Florida for past maybe 3 years or 4 years. But he missed last year because of the pandemic. But the year before that, he had Steve Geiger come down. And it's a beautiful festival down in Florida. And he asked me to come down with Todd Parrott this year. And himself. Jerry's a great player and a great teacher. And it was a little hot because we had to do it in June, and it gets a little hot down there. But we were in a nice hotel, air-conditioned hotel. And we had players, great players from from all over the country come down. And it's called the Paradise Harmonica Festival. And he's going to try and do this every year, so keep an eye out for it. And I know Todd Parrott does a big one up in, I think it's North Carolina or South Carolina. So he's trying to get that going for the fall. He's a great teacher, Todd Parrott. Great teacher, great player. So we got people now doing these things. I mean, of course, Winslow and Jason are doing the, what is that called? The Collective, right?
Oh, yeah.
Harmonica Collective. They have that going on. I know down in Texas, Mad Cat does it with, I think it's Rob Roy Parnell. They do one down in Oklahoma, and I forgot which one. That's tied into a festival down there, and they do a week of harmonica down there. So there's some good stuff going on. I'm going to teach a class, sort of like about what we talked about today with the harmonica as far as chromatic and diatonic. And I'm going to do it for SPA in August during the SPA week. I'll do a class for free, And the UK just did an amazing chromatic weekend with all kinds of great players from around the world, and they did a great job, and they had a big turnout. And it was free. You just made some donations if you liked it, and sent some money to PayPal if you enjoyed it, and they did a good job putting it together. And that's what's going on. And I'm doing some stuff for Hohner, and working with Drew Lewis and Derek Frank, and trying to promote things as best we can. And I'm doing I came out with you might have seen it. It's a custom Big River harmonica. It's a Hohner Big Rivers never really had a big reputation like the crossovers and the Rockets and the Thunderbirds. It's a cheaper harmonica, but that's what I liked about it. It didn't break the bank. So what I did is I put a Blue Moon comb on it from Tom Halchek, and it became like a little Cadillac. and it's a good instrument. So I put my name on the back, so I had a signature harmonica. So it was a Hohner, but a custom Hohner.
Yeah.
I worked on that last year, and just doing what I do, and I'm gonna continue.
That's so great. Yeah, there's so many things happening, and yeah, it's nice to stay in touch through.
That's great,
this
man. It's
format.
great doing this, and I'm glad you're getting back out and doing things too. You're doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, you said you were doing some classical gigs and I guess jazz gigs and whatever,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Really
And
focusing
you're
on the
teaching, too.
classical stuff now. Yeah.
Are you real now? The classical stuff that you're getting into, are you doing that on both diatonic and chromatic?
Oh no, only diatonic.
Oh, wow! So that's a challenge. I know, like what Howard was doing too. So that's fantastic. Yeah. So and I guess it must be hard to find the right piece too. Like, what do I want to work on?
Yeah.
And then you got to, what harp am I going to use now? Will you switch harps on a piece, or how would that work?
Sometimes if it's needed, but usually like my rule is like at least like stick to one harmonica for one piece.
Stick to
like,
one
I don't
because
wanna
you want to have to be switching
switch,
on a
yeah.
classical piece because
definitely
you might make a mistake.
But at the same time, yeah, I mean there are pieces that fit beautifully on the harmonica. Also, I'm glad that my piano.
Can you name a piece? Name a piece that you really think feels good on a diatonic, a classical piece.
Well, some of the flute sonatas by Bach.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of flute stuff, just because of the range of the instrument too.
Yes, I found that when I was studying that all flute music starts on the C below the staff.
Yeah.
Is great practice material for the harmonica player, whether it's chromatic or diatonic, right? The register is very similar.
Yeah.
I was practicing flute duets with Bonfiglio, I remember, and we were
right.
working out of a Telemon flute book, and and everything just right there in the right register.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm glad that my pianist, like he studied classical piano, but
Yeah.
his family is like full of jazz musicians, so he can do both. So we mix everything up. Like he's usually on tour playing video game music. So we're doing everything, like some world music and stuff. And lately I've been not only been into writing pieces for ourselves, but also giving out composition mandates. And we received some wonderful pieces, like 6 or 7 up until now. We recorded the first ones. Howard is writing a piece for us. And
Nice.
some other great players, non-harmonica players.
Can you play a little piano too, or how do you play other instruments?
It's a tool, yeah. I mean, I can play some guitar and piano, yeah.
Good.
Even had
And,
some singing
that's
lessons
a
at music school.
Helpful tool when you're working stuff out.
And I've been really getting into music production, yeah. Recording some harmonica there too.
Nice. Wow, that's fantastic.
So a lot of different stuff. But of course, like everybody in the chat always wants us to play something. Maybe we
Okay.
can wrap this up with something. Do you have an idea?
Now, will we be able to play together if I put on a
Yeah,
track?
that's
or
so
you
hard. We
wanna
like
put a
usually
track
do
on,
like
or
just
it's up to
like
you?
great choruses.
I could put on like a
That's the
blues
only
track
option.
and we'll just play over it. And I don't know if the delay will happen. Let me see what I got here. You want to put something on?
Yeah, I think
Go
we
ahead.
got to do it without the track. We just can trade like talk.
Oh, just play it.
choruses.
Yeah, let's play without the track. Yeah. So pick a key and whatever.
Oh, we
And,
could do the song for my father.
All right. I got a B flat harp. I don't know what
I like my B flat. I thought we could also do song for my father.
Oh, a song from my father's good. Do you know The Preacher?
mean, I know the melody, but I never played this.
Yeah, it's an old Horace Silver song. I think he's the guy that wrote "Song for My Father" too,
True,
right?
yeah.
But anyway, these are great songs that kind of go outside of the blues changes a little bit, but they're very bluesy.
Yeah.
And you did some great overblowing on that too. I stole a few licks. Yeah, that worked out great. Was it a 6 overblow? Yeah. Cool stuff.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
Yeah, so think if there aren't like any questions left. Marco's writing, Rob, you're an all-around incredible player. I love the fact that you play chromatic outside the D minor blues style. And I think the C chromatic still has a lot of potential in electric blues especially.
Yeah, a lot of times what I'll do is like when we're starting on a chromatic with somebody that's coming from the blues and does third position, I'll say we're going to do a Duke Ellington song like In a Sentimental Mood, which really starts in D minor, you know.
Yeah.
It's all D minor, so you're not really, the button only becomes for accidentals. So D minor is a good way to start. Of course, the song later goes to D flat, and then and it becomes other options. But Body and Soul, right, is really, when you think about it, so that's like it's D flat, right? And so it's really like the button in first position almost with the button in. You got all these like thirds and things like that. So each key takes on a little character. I was playing, Black Orpheus before. That's A minor, so it's the relative minor of first position kind of a thing. And I did, because I started as a diatonic player, I thought about that a lot as I was working on songs in different keys. So that Duke Ellington is, we use a lot of Duke Ellington because Toots told me that you got to pay attention to the melody, and there's a lot of blues in the Duke Ellington in a mellow tone, and Don't Get Around Much Anymore, and Mood Indigo, and In a Sentimental Mood. These are great starting standards to learn. You got to learn some Duke.
That's some good advice. Yeah. So. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Everybody out there, if you want to check out Rob's CDs or the signature harmonica, you can just check the link in the link description below and check out his website. I have an ad for an upcoming Twitch stream. We're going to do a monthly challenge there, and this month it's going to be a reggae challenge with Steve Baker. So everybody out there can submit their recordings to the Discord server until Saturday evening, let's say midnight. And you can win one of 3 Hohner melodicas, like the Rasta version with 37 keys. So that's pretty special.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
So yeah. I'm looking forward to your recordings. Did you ever get into playing reggae on the harmonica?
Reggae? Who's doing reggae on the harmonica?
I don't know. Like I also thought about it. Like the only guy that came to my mind was Steve Baker, because there's like 2 reggae blues compositions that he wrote himself, I guess.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I mean reggae would be great for blues harp too, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Boogie on Reggae Woman.
True.
Stevie Wonder. But that's not really a reggae too. But, yeah, reggae works out great. I mean, hip hop, I got calls from hip hop players, and everybody wants to add harmonica in a different way, and that's great, man. We should have it in as many different styles of music as we can.
Definitely. Awesome. So everybody check out the description box for information on the challenge, and Rob, and well, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time.
All right,
and
thanks for having me,
telling
and
us
good
all the
luck with
stories.
everything, and we'll talk again.
Yeah, hope to see you soon at a harmonica festival.
Okay. Yeah, see you at a real live festival, hopefully. Okay.
Oh,
Thanks
yeah.
again, Konstantin.
Have a good day. Bye bye.